Welcome back to another episode of Absolutely. My name is Benny, that is Hassan, and that is Sal. We are three guys that get together to talk about the world of comic books and comic book movies and the state of things going on. I run a channel known as Benny Has a Problem. Hassan runs a channel known as Hassan Kader, and then we have Sal from Comic Pop. So today, the Russo brothers have taken a stance against, I guess, everyone
young
complaining.
People.
Young people. You're like, what was your word? Like, you're like, get off
my
lawn.
People don't go to the movies anymore because they're kids and they were the TikToks.
Which I do think there's some validity to. I do think the way they've articulated is much better than like when Martin Scorsese was like, the MCU has been ruining movies.
Honestly, when it comes out of the mouth of a 79-year-old man versus like maybe a 45-year-old man, it's going to sound a little more palatable. But still, it's just like, okay, go ahead.
Let me read the article. Yeah, so they were asked the Russo brothers were asked if they feel that superhero fatigue is what's killing the current climate of movies.
Right. Which of course
I've not fully agreed with because we've had a few poor movies. We've had a few poor selections. We've had some very bad decisions in the hype factor. Yeah. But when the good ones come out, they still bank $1 billion.
People still show up.
Yeah, like Guardians 3 is a great example. The Spider-Man No Way Home, all these things show that if done right, we still have the audience there. They think that it's less to do with the superhero fatigue and more to do with the current climate of the world. So when asked about it, they said they think it's a reflection on the current state of everything. When asked about superhero fatigue, they said they've been hearing that for the last 10 years. They made Winter Soldier. They've been hearing it since then. It's difficult right now. It's an interesting time, and I think that we're in a transitional period, and people don't know quite yet how they're going to be receiving stories moving forward or what kinds of stories they're going to want. There's a big generational divide about how you consume media. There's a generation that used to appoint viewing and then go to the theater on a certain date to see something, but that's aging out. The new generation is I want it now, I want to process it now, and then moving on to the next thing while they process two other things at the same time. It's a very different moment in time than it's ever been. And I think everyone, including Marvel, is experiencing the same thing, this transition. I think that really is probably what's at play more than anything else. Before this, I also want to state this is actually much larger in scope than just MCU and DCEU because I feel comic books are experiencing this exact same thing right now because now they're competing with bookstore models for manga, and manga is competing with manhwa over on Webtoons, which is getting its own releases and having its own issues. And we are in a generation where you can read an entire story on your phone while on the toilet or receive all of your content on the toilet. So I'll shut up now. Let's go to our resident Gen Zer who lives on TikTok, Hassan.
That's true.
I work on TikTok. I don't live on TikTok. No,
he's the guy I'd like to specify.
Yeah,
I think,
please.
My initial instinct when I heard the article, like the pre-show, was that, Russo brothers are saying kids don't like going to the movies anymore. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're saying that society, like the state of movies are emblematic of what society is. People are more poor than they have literally ever been at any time other than like the Great Depression, I guess. Yeah. Everything is unaffordable. On top of that, post-COVID, anxiety is up a pretty significant rung, both with political climates of the world and also day-to-day lives in America. The unaffordability makes people more anxious to be in social settings. Movies are inherently that. It is like going to the movie theaters are a social setting. So now that you've created this wedge of like you can watch it from your laptop in your house, from the safety away from everything else where you don't spend an extra penny. It's just a subscription, $6.99 that you're already paying. It makes a lot of sense. Like I'm different. I've been lucky that the entire time the movie, the lull is hit and the economy's been down. I've been a YouTuber. So like I have a little bit more income. I feel more comfortable to go to the movies. I pay for like an AMC movie pass to see, 3 movies every week if I could, right? Like I try to go and do that. But the vast majority of people that are my age, it's a very big convincing thing. It's got to be a big cultural moment. And a lot of us have to be going together to even kind of nudge them to want to go to a movie. So,
yeah.
So,
it's, go ahead.
No, I was giving the floor to you.
It's a combination of factors, obviously. Like, it's not that, like, everyone's to blame. Like every problem in America or the world, everyone is at fault, or everyone bears some measure of responsibility, except for the people who have no control over their lives. And, when it comes to, like, why people aren't going to see Marvel movies, part of it is because some of them have been bad, and most people don't have money. Now, to build off what Hassan said earlier about like people being more broke than they've ever been, the problem is it's a disproportionate amount of affordability, right? Like creature comforts and dopamine hits have never been more affordable. Everyone can own a now. When I say everyone can own, it sounds like I'm about to launch a streaming service for our own stuff. But like,
welcome to Absolute. This is
yeah,
our brand new
Absolute
streaming service.
Plus.
We'll do $6.99 a month, but you should also subscribe to our Patreon. We'll see what happens next.
And
Everyone can
afford
afford
it.
it.
Shirt line.
Yeah, but I should say, like, more people than ever could afford, like, to replicate the theater experience, is what I'm saying. Like, you know, people can buy flat screen TVs have never been more affordable. Let's put it that way, right? Like higher quality TVs and movies have never been, in terms of definition, have never been more affordable. So you can replicate the cinematic experience as much as possible. You can afford to care about like what surround sound means and, you know, high definition audio and stuff like that. Creature comforts, phones, everyone needs one, but they're still crazy expensive, but they're just expensive enough to be a thing you can afford, maybe, but you don't have money for a mortgage or a car, or, you know, you don't have money to change your life. You just have money that you can use to make yourself forget that you can't change your life. And yet everything you use, particularly the little rectangle in your pocket, is telling you that. So you're more aware of it than ever. You know, it used to be like, oh, you get married and you have kids and you get distracted and you suddenly realize you're 75, 80 and you're like, oh, I could have been doing other things. But like now you're being told you're a well-paid slave. You have no control over your life. And this thing you're using that I'm using to tell you that you're being controlled, yeah, it's also affecting your brain chemistry. Like, so it makes everyone insane. And because these creature comforts are also affordable, yet nothing is, it makes you start to prioritize. Because you're like, well, I need my phone and I need the streaming services, but I can pare down those. And then Hollywood comes out and goes, well, don't forget to get in your car you can't afford and drive to a building that's far away with the gas you can't afford, and then go see a movie that is made poorly.
Yeah.
With people who suck. Like,
I mean, I agree
like sign me up.
Well, I was gonna say is I agree with your point actually, because I in the last couple of years have been said it multiple times that I've felt almost no desire to go to the theater anymore. Pre-COVID, we would go to the theater almost on a weekly basis. It was an event. It was a thing I like to do.
And
I
you
also
see things you wouldn't normally see because
absolutely
it was to get out of the house and go do things. But when COVID hit, we had moved into a new place at the time. There was a lot of open space that hadn't been decided on yet.
Yeah.
And so I built like a home gym. I'm a small one, but something to keep me busy. And I built a theater space here with crazy sound, crazy TV, the whole 9 yards. And now that things are more normal, there has been multiple times, and I love Cinemark for letting me do this, where I'll use the Cinemark pass, book a movie, and we'll be at like the hour mark where it's like, do you really want to go? Is this something we really want to see? It's like, 'cause we got to get in the car, got to fight traffic. It takes 45 minutes to get there. Then we got to deal with screaming kids, all this other shit. Then we got to figure out food. We're going to be out for like 4 or 5 hours. And then I got to, get uncomfortable, and I got to be around people I don't want to be around. Or, they just put Godzilla versus Kong for $20
on streaming. I don't need it.
We could just refund this because Cinemark lets us.
Yeah.
And get back. I mean, normally, if you think about the total cost, not like between getting the money back and going, $100 and just put that towards one movie that we sit on the couch in our sweats, Oh
no, like movies are the easiest luxury you can skip.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet they're also insanely expensive. The other problem, and the reason why movies are so easy to skip, movies are like one of the greatest art forms that America contributes, right? And it's something that like we pioneered, and we we've made film ubiquitous as a human experience and culture. And yet it's the easiest thing to skip and discount and marginalize and ignore, especially when times are tough. Part of the reason I think now that movies are easier to skip than ever is because media literacy is dying.
Dead.
And it's also part of the problem with like the little idiot box in our pockets. But like media literacy is dying. So essentially what you're saying is I know that like people can recognize when a movie is bad, but they don't necessarily know how to articulate why. And they also don't have as well defined media literacy. And so it's like, I go to see a movie that is marketed for what is essentially me, and I know that it sucks.
Yeah.
But then I'll go see another movie and I'll find it pretentious because I don't understand it. Or I don't have the media literacy in order to discern when a movie is like marketed for me or made for me or using language that I don't understand. Like, it's just because it's been hashed out of us. And like, so Hollywood is confused. You're like, we make the movies, we spend the money, and I don't see why people aren't going. And it's like, because you're also not actively trying to fix the broken culture.
No.
And that's, you're just, it's
Well,
like when we do it. It's like when we make videos and we're like, why aren't they doing well? And it's like, because the landscape is changing and we need to.
I agree with you 100% because that's why Comic Story has changed over the last 4 years because I'm trying to find its next groove.
Yeah.
And I just launched a side channel. It's like, here's the classic. And
Right.
if that fails, I don't care.
Right.
If it does well, awesome. But I can just throw a channel out there that is classic Comic Story and let it live or die based on its old classic. But I need to adapt the new channel to the current channel to the new climate. But you're right. You 100% are right because there's other markets doing the same issue.
Right.
We have the comic book industry complaining because people aren't going out to the local comic book store, and then every other competitor in that field is like, what if we do a great digital service? What if we do full page, like an instant thing you can read on your phone? Like Marvel and DC they're doing the same model they have been doing since comic stores opened, and they're like, why isn't this working anymore?
Yeah.
It's because things are accessible now and you're making it not accessible.
Yes. Well, because if I make it accessible, I can't make money because I don't know how else to make money. And so rather than it's just educating yourself and it's being more prepared for a changing or just altering market. Like, look,
but it's the same issue with the movie theater, like you're saying.
Yeah. Well, you exchange money for goods and services.
What COVID showed me was, hey, holy they're willing to put these movies where I can get it like a month after the movie comes out for $20.
Yeah.
Like, so I can spend $20 in a month and
I don't have to go.
I don't have to go anywhere. Like, is this movie worth going to the theater to see right now?
Yeah.
The big shift.
And Madam Web was, right, Hassan?
I've had it with you in this movie. God damn it. I watched the movie more than anybody in America, and I hate it. Look, it's also like, Disney Plus started to release the IMAX cut of these movies. Movies have their little black bars, but in IMAX, you get to see more. And when it came to Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, you were literally getting, you wouldn't know at Tony Stark's funeral at the closed service inside of the house that Captain America and Thor are in there unless you saw the IMAX version that didn't have their heads cut off and they weren't off to the side. So, it's definitely, it's harder to justify that. And then Sal, I really agree with you with what you said on media literacy. I feel like, I think I'm lucky enough to have some of that still left in me. I saw the trailers for Oppenheimer. I saw the hype around it. I saw the narrative. And I was like, this isn't something I'm going to enjoy. Not because it's bad or not because it's not good, because this isn't the kind of media that I enjoy. And some people can't distinct what's made for everybody and what's made for a niche group. Because while Oppenheimer did really well, tell me that's not a niche group of people on some level. Like, it did well because of the actors and Christopher Nolan and the hype and how it was filmed. But it's like, you guys want America to go watch a biopic about how we nuked Japan? Like, that's
we used to do that. Like, the thing is,
better example to go with that exact thing. Joker.
Right.
The Joker is like, regardless of how well it did, it was made for a niche audience because the amount of people that I know that are like, the concept of a mentally challenged person, or having an issue who then gets so drung out that he wants to kill people just doesn't appeal to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and like that, like same deal. Like,
yeah, biopics used to be bread and butter for Hollywood. But before the mega blockbuster, because like we had blockbusters, we had Jerry Bruckheimers, we had Michael Bay's, we had all these different like people who made the movie that had the explosions and everyone went to go see. But adjacent to that, we also had the biopic, where it was like a big sweeping like expose / deep dive on a very central figure in history, particularly with America, or we Americanized some version of a European like leader. That was also a thing where it was like, we could spend as much money as like Michael Bay, and it's essentially just a weird, drama about one person.
Yeah,
like
weird
Oppenheimer definitely, like Oppenheimer is actually kind of like it harkened back to like 90s Hollywood, because it was like, no, that's exactly. I was like, yeah, no, Oppenheimer. I'm glad that people are going to see it, because it reminded me of like when they would do that. There's no reason for Oppenheimer to cost $200 million, but like, I don't remember what the budget was, but I could say like, I'm sure it was less than like your average Marvel movie. And that's great, because it's like, it's changing the perceptions and expectations of your audience, or your general theater going audience, because you're like conditioning them to see other types of movies.
And to counter what the Russos are talking about too, like I will say, people have been kind of going back to the movies. Like Anyone But You, the Sydney Sweeney rom-com did really, really well for a rom-com. No, it's not shattering an MCU record.
Wait, what movie is this? Is that
Sydney Sweeney, Glenn Powell?
It's the one that's a rewrite of a Shakespearean play.
Yeah, I saw it. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Are you serious? Like, okay, it wasn't incredible by any means, but I will say, Natalie and I put it on expecting it to be trash in the background.
Was it Anyone But You? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Anyone But You.
They go on the vacation and then they got to pretend they got together because
I couldn't fathom how terrible it was. I was actually blown away.
It wasn't incredible, but it definitely got me to stop like only focusing on my phone.
That's outrageous.
That's so and then
he's not even like naked in that one, so it's not even that.
Let's hold what Benny just said about his phone too, because I want to circle back to that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But that movie did well. Challengers, the new Zendaya movie, is doing really, really well. People are talking
she has
about
the threesome and it's making rounds everywhere.
Yes, it's making rounds for the threesome and the acting and a lot of other stuff to do with it. But it's making rounds in a really big way, and it's not a Marvel thing. Is half the press junket people uncomfortably asking this actress who acts for a living, is it weird to kiss boys in movies? And
yeah, they've been doing that for 100 years. Like, that's just, it's a horrible thing that they've been always doing.
Well, they're aggressively doing it to Zendaya because her boyfriend is Spider-Man. So they're trying to get a click moment where she mentions Tom. Like, did you guys have a conversation about it? It's like, no, she's been an actor forever.
Well, and you know why they're doing it like that? Because that's another thing that Hollywood used to generate for the media circus, which was like couples.
Yeah. Well, Anyone But You was marketed like that. Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell came out actually very recently, talked about how the affair marketing of the movie, that like Glenn Powell had broken up with his longtime girlfriend and Sydney Sweeney had intentionally stopped wearing her wedding ring for the purpose of making it look like they were having an affair to up the marketing hype of the movie. And it goddamn did. And it's genius. Like, it's something that old Hollywood did 24/7. But now you're having, the new Hollywood marketing strategy is aiming towards TikToks and not tabloids about them kind of thing. And it's working really well.
Yeah. I mean, you see the changing markets and how like we present the same crap, but giving it like a fresh coat of paint that matches the aesthetic or what the old guard thinks the new aesthetic is. I mean, like I'm using an old example now, but like put Keanu Reeves in a room full of puppies and then ask him the same boring questions we would ask him if he was sitting in a chair at a press junket. Yeah. And it's like, or that the Hot Ones show where it's like eat hot wings while I ask you questions, and people are like blown away by the like interview style of the host of that show, and it's like his research team is the interviewer. He just asks those questions.
He's good at asking those questions, man. Sean Evans.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
You wanted to double
he has like
back.
Zero charisma.
Oh, you think so? I used to love watching him.
I
as an
disagree
interviewer.
with you. Okay, when it comes to Sean Evans, I've seen him off camera and on camera. I agree. Off camera, he doesn't seem to have a lot, but he knows how to turn the charm on for the camera. I agree with.
Okay, he could turn. I
used to love Hot Ones, and then that idea, and inherently got stale because of what it was. Now
exactly. I don't watch it anymore because it's the same.
Well, it's Mythical Kitchen is doing the incredible version of it. With their host. Oh my God, chat, please let me know if you know what the guy's name is. I think his name's Evan or something, but he's super talented. They do a show called Last Meal where they'll take an actor and they'll cook their entire like death row meal.
That's
Chef Josh. They sit there and they eat all of the food, and it's the opposite of Hot Ones. Let's put them in a comfortable setting so they tell me things. Let's put them in the most comfortable setting so they feel, what's better than comfort food and conversation.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. No, that's a fantastic show. I mean, like, but that is just a 25 to 30-year-old show called Dinner for Five, where you take people who all know each other and then just film them with no interviewer.
I mean, we could just have an entire discussion about the shows that are lapping, but everyone's like, it's amazing you came up with this. Like I'll touch on this real quick and then we'll go back to you wanted to bring up the phone.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah. So, but Watcher, which we just for those who don't know, made a big deal with it. Like, we make incredible shows and we want to make better shows. We're going to put it behind a paywall. And there's a whole video that I did on that topic on the Benny Has a Problem channel. So you can go watch it there. But they were like, because I've seen their shows. They're like, yeah, we do this great show with eating food and we do this great show with ghost hunting. And I'm like, those have existed for a very long time.
Yeah, they'll exist long after you.
Yeah, and like you didn't invent a genre.
You didn't change anything. It's just you guys doing it.
Right, and that's what it comes down to. How is your charisma? Going back to Sean Evans, his charisma works for that show.
Right, right. But you couldn't give him a talk show.
No, I don't think
no. I mean, in the same way, you can't give Fallon a YouTube show and expect him to be any good. Fallon's only good. He's only exists in that setting, and he's bad everywhere else. He did like a podcast with all the other hosts during the strike.
Oh, I know. It was awful.
He was the worst one by a country mile. Oh my God, he's awful to listen to speak.
But that's because that podcast, I get so angry when celebrities try to ape on like something that isn't theirs, that like they also look down on. Like, Colbert was like, he like had to take a shower after doing a podcast.
Oh yeah.
No, okay, hold on. I'm watching a lot of Colbert recently, and
I like Colbert.
Colbert is just on board with everything going on. They're like,
okay,
if you watch his shows,
I've watched his shows. First of all, no. You know what? We're not going to get into it.
We're going to get into this after the show.
Let's double back around because this episode's already at 22 minutes. So I mentioned my phone. You wanted to...
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about that. The other issue is the new generation, including old Mr. Potter here, can't help but stare at their phone during every piece of media. When we were reviewing Young Justice years ago, that was my first job on this channel. My first
I've been doing it while we're on the show.
Dude, we watch you. We actually know you're doing it.
I know. Hold on. I want to clarify because I actually like your point here. Okay. So hold on.
No. Let me finish my talk.
Okay, finish your point, but I agree with you, and I want to talk about that.
With Young Justice reviews, Benny would watch it and play on his phone and play anime app games and all this other bullshit the whole time we were filming, or the whole time he was watching the thing. We'd film, and he would argue talking points that were discussed in the episode that he just missed. At one point, he tried to like argue that a character's dad was another character, and there's a clip of me and Dan just be like, did you watch the episode? One of the biggest talking points of it, he goes, oh yeah, well, I was playing Genshin Impact, and look at this anime girl's boobies.
In my defense of the Young Justice, I did not like watching Young Justice after like episode 2, which is why we don't do shows that I don't like anymore.
Right.
Because I do check out entirely. Okay. Yeah, and I've admitted that. Now, I have had ADHD for my entire life. Before everyone was self-diagnosing themselves on TikTok and doing stupid videos with like,
I have a real diagnosis if you're trying to bully me about
this isn't you. This isn't you. I'm talking about like 90% of the TikTok generation, like my brother going, I watched a short and I think I have autism. And I'm like, you're 35. What are you talking about? Like, well, what I'm saying is, I learned 20-something years ago, 9 times out of 10, my brain works best when there's a secondary thing going on.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times, what you guys don't know here on the shows, I just have lo-fi music happening in the background because that lets me focus on the conversation.
Benny used to play Destiny while we were recording.
Yeah. Well, I don't. So what I do normally is I don't play games anymore, like on this screen, because I'm too obviously.
Noticeable. It got very noticeable.
Because people what happened was we would get complaints that I'm so uninterested that like we shouldn't even do the show, and it's like, no, it's not that. This is how I can focus on the top. So music is better because I can look like I'm paying attention and I can do what I'm doing here. Once in a while, I will play on a phone on the side or whatever. It's mostly because I came back to work today after being gone for a week. So I'm getting bombarded with emails and things like that right now.
And here's what I'll ask.
What I'm getting at is I find it hilarious because if you get to know me, I have to explain that if we're going to have a real conversation, I'm going to have Pokemon Go going or a fidget or I'm going to do something because that's how I can focus on our conversation. Just like you guys know, I'm doing something during the conversation. You all know that.
I have a question for you, Ben.
But in this generation, like an insult. Oh, you're so addicted to TikTok. And
so Ben, here's my question. Prior to COVID, when you were in theaters more often, not to say you didn't do this, but were you less inclined and maybe you feel more comfortable doing it now? And now it's maybe more habitual than it was before? Because like I grew up with ADHD. I still have ADHD. I have very bad. I'm not medicated for it. And it's very much a thing of like, I had better habits of media consumption prior to COVID, and then I was given more license to watch things in my house. Like, I'll say it, very embarrassingly so, and obviously not in a way that can obstruct anybody. I've checked my phone during a movie multiple times, and back in the day, like given 3 or 4 years ago, I would never do that. I wouldn't even touch my phone unless it's an emergency situation.
Yes, I 100%. Since COVID I got really bad, where like I would even open up like an app game just out of habit. That was one of the things that started my desire to like this phone is what I call the sterile phone, and not because I don't use it in the bathroom. This is the phone that has no games on it, it has no social media on it. This is my phone.
Totally.
So if I go to like the theater or things that I cannot be doing something on the side, the phone that is the work phone with the social media stays in the car.
Right.
So I'll go to the theater. So this then becomes a fidget device where I'm just doing this. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, but
Totally.
there's nothing on it. I can't do anything with it. So, but that's how I had to fix that, because COVID, it became this like carte blanche of like, well, I'm at home and I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to have the tablet, I'm going to have the phone, I'm going to have the game, I'm going to have the podcast.
You know why that is, by the way, I think, and I'm just spitballing here, and I'm sure there's like a licensed professional who could probably really articulate this better, but like we were addicted to our phones during COVID as a method of checking in with the world and having comfort, the same way that 24-hour news infected our culture after 9/11.
Yeah.
I'm linking the show with 9/11, folks. Here we go.
I agree, because I had to actively go, this is becoming a problem. And I only realized it was a problem, not the theater, when I started checking TikTok at a stoplight.
Oh,
it was like, oh, I'll just watch a quick TikTok at a stoplight.
Right, but like that's what people do. Like that's everybody. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine?
And I'm like, this is a problem. This is a real problem.
But like, think about how after September 11th, 20 some odd years ago, parents, right, boomers, were like, well, I need to know what's going on. I need to know I need to stay updated. I need to be informed. Yeah. That was the impulse. Well, 24-hour news came out, was like, happy to do it. Here you go. And extremist views and opinions were spewed at the screen on a 24-hour basis, which made people addicted to that kind of content, to the point where like, hey, everyone's parents watch 24-hour news, and certain other parents watch a particular type of 24-hour news, and some of them got really like down the rabbit hole and have to watch special like non-television version 24-hour news that isn't even news anymore. Like the same way that people who watched YouTube all the time got addicted and indoctrinated into other particularly extremist views. Like it's just a thing we do when we are in moments of trauma, and we retreat into the familiar and into the comfort and into anyone who will offer it. And like on the news side, it was like, anchors and correspondents. With this, it's like personalities and characters. It's a whole thing. I mean, like when you think about like your best friend who goes through a breakup and they watch The Office for the 160th time. Just watch all of The Office. Like people retreat.
You've got a friend who watches Full Metal Alchemist on loop anytime he's Dan is in the back yelling at me from the back room.
Anytime he's depressed. I mean, like, right? Like that's what we do. And it's like, we need to recognize like, yo, it's a thing that humans do. It's not healthy. And we need to do something about it.
It's not healthy, Dan. Are you hearing me? It's not healthy.
Well, and I think this whole conversation feels like a very far tangent from where we started, but I don't think it is.
I think how did we get to 9/11?
I actually think it's directly in line. It's the Russo brothers. What the Russo brothers said, it's emblematic of what the world is right now. This is what the world is right now. It's that people who had ADHD and were learning to cope with it and finding ways to exist in society proper got carte blanche to do whatever because society was so dark and everything was so bad. And it's hard to get out of those habits. So you're going to tell that person, hey, go to a movie theater in dead silence and stare at the screen for 2 hours on a movie that you may or may not like. Because
regardless of quality,
because MCU movies used to be guaranteed bangers. That's ADHD kids leaving their phone in the car. Yes. Now, movies happen and you got to sit there and watch the screen. So
I'm gonna end our topic here because we've got a really good solid.
No, I think it's great.
I want to just on a funny note, because like we're talking about how we handle ADD and we don't have to use medication, and I haven't used medication in 20 years, so I actually get a lot of questions of how do you manage it, how do you do it, because I'd like your tips and stuff like that. So I actually made a video on Benny Has a Problem. And I thought I'd freeform talk about what I do with ADD. And we threw the video out because it was the most ADD video I've ever made. It was
I
so
believe it.
all over it was like this. So I got like, if we're going to make it, I need to outline it better though.
Yeah, totally.
100%. Yeah, no, that was definitely that was the same conversation on my channel for commentary videos where there was a narrative of like, okay, writing it, that seems to be too much work, and then I don't want to make the video because of my ADHD. So let's try improving the whole video. Well, that's a very bad idea because I'll talk about nothing.
We get too much off the rail.
Totally.
Yeah. Now I just do bullet points and then proceed. So
That's probably smart.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Absolutely. If you're watching live, they're going to be continuing the discussion into talking about X-Men, and that will be at twitch.tv/comicstorian. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you ever want to catch it live, every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we do go live having these discussions, and we do a lot of behind the scenes and just B-roll and have fun with the audience. And we also go live on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. I was thinking about how our numbers have kind of been stagnant for like a year, and then I realized we don't promote when we go live.
That's true. Yeah.
We never do.
the comments would be like, they're getting to these topics so late. Why would they record this today? I was like, we recorded it a week ago. We were probably still late, but we did record it a week ago.
But anyway, guys, if you want to watch us live, that's where it happens. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will be back in 3 weeks with a topic that is a month old.